Welcome to icaact Radio, your civilian citizens dedicated to exposing domestic and international terrorism. Hello and welcome back, icaact Radio listeners. Today is July 11th, 2015. Welcome back to the United We Strike Marathon Weekend, preaching Don't Buy, Don't Comply, Ask Why. My name is Jesse Beltran, your host of icaact Radio, and today we're going to discuss what does freedom mean. We just had a wonderful weekend of Independence Day for many, and maybe not so well for some. But what does freedom mean? And that is the topic today. Is freedom something that we take for granted? What does it mean to you? It means many things to many different people in different ways. But we can make some quotes of famous people from the past, such as Thomas Jefferson, who said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Abraham Lincoln said, "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves." Ronald Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same." And Nelson Mandela may have said it best, "For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedoms of others." Today we're going to talk about an unforeseen paradigm that directly affects freedom in a way we never could have predicted. The marketing of these new technologies have been really glorified, particularly in Hollywood, in the classroom, on our televisions, the radios, everywhere you go, everyone's looking at their smartphones. Well, let me show you a little soundbite, and then we'll bring on our guest, Mr. Lars Drudgaard, who we are very proud to have in our show.
I'm dying.
What if there was a way you could live forever?
We can make you immortal.
With a new body built to perfection.
And you can have all of this. Money in the car's clothes, you can have all of this.
But what if your new life...
How is this possible?
I thought you were dead!
...belonged to someone else?
Yeah!
Selfless, rated PG-13.
You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Nancy Red, and this conversation is inspired by the film Selfless, opening in theaters on July 10th. Selfless delves into the concept of immortality and transferring consciousness, which has always seemed like science fiction, but has become closer to reality every day. We're looking at how advances in genetics, biotechnology, and computing have opened up the possibility of extraordinary lifespans for ordinary people. Randall, I'm going to begin with you. You developed an interest in brain uploading over 20 years ago, but with a somewhat unique perspective, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I came at it from the perspective of dealing with our limitations. So not just life expectancy, but particularly mental limitations. What sort of things can we experience? What can we think? What sort of challenges can we handle? I think that's not just important for individuals, but it's important for the species as a whole. Because if you think about it, the reason we're here now is because natural selection as a process kind of found us to be suitable for survival in this particular slice of time and space. But that's not going to be the case necessarily at all times. Things change, either because we change things, like we increase the pace of information through computers, we make environmental changes, or changes appear from the outside, like when, the meteor impact ended the reign of the dinosaurs. So natural selection weeds out, and it doesn't elevate species from suitability in one niche to another. And we're not evolved for things like space travel. That's why our space travelers are all robots. And we're not evolved for totally different sensory input or to have perfect memory or deal with large quantities of data. So I think that for humanity to play a role in the long term, you have to be very adaptable and able to self-direct our evolution. And that's really only possible if you have complete access to what's going on in the mind. And that's what uploading to other substrates makes possible. So whole brain emulation and mind uploading are really about maximum adaptability to me.
Now, that was Dr. Randall Cohn on a Huffington Post interview, and you heard it, natural selection. You know, we've been talking about what does freedom mean, and I've said some quotes there as I stated, and they're very, very powerful. And freedom really means a lot of different things to many, many different people. But in essence, it really is the right to choose your destiny, and obviously without causing harm to other human beings, and giving them the right to choose those things. But we now have this new movement called the Trans-humanism movement, and what does it mean to be human? And I was reading an article from Extreme Tech, and I want to read a few bits of it. And it says, what does it mean to be human? Biology has a simple answer. If your DNA is consistent with Homo sapiens, you are human. But we all know that humanity is a lot more complex and nuanced than that. Other schools of science might classify humans by their sociological or psychological behavior. But again, we know that actually being human is more than just the sum of our thoughts and actions. You can also look at being human as a sliding scale. If you were to build a human from scratch, from the bottom up, and at some point you cross a threshold into humanity, if you believe in evolution, at some point we ceased being a great ape and became human. Likewise, if you slowly remove parts from a human, you cross the threshold into inhumanity. Again, though we run into the same problem, how do we codify, classify, and ratify what actually makes us human? Does adding empathy make us human? Does removing the desire to procreate make us inhuman? If I physically alter my brain to behave in a different, non-standard way, am I still human? If I have all my limbs removed and my head spliced onto a robot, am I still human? At first glance, these questions might sound inflammatory and hyperbolic, or perhaps surreal and sci-fi, but don't be fooled. In the next decade, given the continued acceleration of computer technology and biomedicine, we will be forced to confront these questions and attempt to find some answers. Transhumanism is a cultural and intellectual movement that believes we can and should improve the human condition through the use of advanced technologies. One of the core concepts in transhumanist thinking is life extension, and there lies the problem. Who gets to choose who gets to live forever? Who gets to choose who gets to transcend into whatever modality that may be, that what was once human consciousness is now something that the transhumanist envision. Now, Lars, I know you have a lot to say about this topic, and I'd like to get your 2 cents in so that our listeners can understand just what's before us.
Yeah, it was actually a part of the it was actually part of my political program or stance that I wanted to run on. And essentially, I believe that transhumanist is the most dangerous religious cult the world has ever known. And the reason for that is they, unlike the most fundamentalist Christians, the most fundamentalist Jews, the most fundamentalist Muslims we have on this planet, who want to kill millions of people and have done so, the transhumanists want to annihilate the entire human species. And I find that a very, very scary concept. And I think when you look into it, it is very, very sad to see that the financing of all of this is done by governments, our governments, and it's driven by the military-industrial complex, because many of the applications that the transhumanist wants for their cult reasons are the same things that the military wants in their efforts to create the super soldier.
So Lars, though, what if I say that technology is a great thing? Well, technology can help me have cyborg type like hearing, which I've read recently in an article. Technology can help me see better than humans can possibly see. Technology, just by getting an implant in my brain, for example, there's new nanomeshes that are coming out in the universities that they're implanting in mice, and they're able to manipulate their thoughts and able to get them to behave in certain ways. Maybe taking away an aggressive behavior, or maybe making them more docile, or vice versa. Why wouldn't that be a good thing for me?
Well, it might be a good thing for you, but it will not be a good thing for the rest of the world. Because you have to imagine that these things are not free. They are extremely expensive. And that means that, like, improving your brain capacity, literally getting much more intelligent and much more knowledge and have that right at your fingertips, basically, or at the thought process itself, means that you will be far superior to anyone else out there. And that means only if you are a rich person can you afford to be an intelligent, super intelligent person with superhuman powers, superpowers.
So, unlimited resources, so to speak. Just for you listeners to know, as I spoke about this cyborg hearing, just to have this surgery done, 125,000 per ear. So this is what Lars is alluding to, and let's say we can make everyone smarter. Only if you have the resources to do this will you have access to this type of technology, and herein lies the demise of humanity. Just as we read, apes. If you believe in evolution, we eventually evolved. So now, is this okay? Is it okay to evolve and integrate our human DNA with biological technologies, and then who gets to survive?
Yes. Yeah. And there's actually also another question. If we have a group of super rich people who will literally become much more intelligent with human superpowers, like we see them in comic strips and so on and so forth, what will that mean to democracy, the concept of democracy? Well, I don't think the people want the dumbest people around to be in charge, and that means only the rich will ever get a chance of running any democracy around the world. So that will mean definitely the end of democracy as a concept, political concept. And that's the true danger of this.
And you're absolutely right, Lars, because only the rich, those who are in control and power, money is power, and power runs politics right now. You cannot run for political office typically without a large purse and have a decent outcome. There are some rare exceptions, which we hope that those types continue, and those usually are persons representing the people, the majority, and now with this transhumanism movement, freedom isn't what it seems to be.
Yeah. And I want to recommend two different books on the topic that are basically novels, both of them, but they both discuss this in really good length and in a very sort of readable way because they're novels. And the first book I want to sort of recommend is Dan Brown's Inferno. And the title Inferno is basically very, very close to the core of what this is and what the transhumanists really want. The end of days for the human species. And the second one is actually, it's called Breakpoint, and it's written by Richard A. Clarke, and he was the counterintelligence czar in the United States for many years. And he has a great knowledge and insight into all of the capabilities that are already in existence and have been developed by the US military and DARPA and IARPA and so on and so forth. And he wrote this